We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation. We ask that everyone be patient as we navigate through this together. We have two formats for participation, the Zoom web application as well as teleconference. Before we begin, I want to review some guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please pay close attention. We ask that you silence your other communication devices such as your cell or desk phones to ensure that there's no interruption during the meeting. During the meeting, all participants in Zoom, except for board members and the South Coast AQMD staff, will be placed on mute by the host. This means that you will not be able to mute or unmute your lines manually. After each agenda item, the chair will announce public comment. For those of you using Zoom on your computer, if you'd like to make a public comment on the Zoom screen, please click on the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. This will signal to the host that you would like to provide public comment and you would be added to the list. If you're using Zoom on your smartphone, again, please tap the raised hand button on the bottom of the screen. For those of you calling in on the phone line only, you may dial in *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment and you would be added to the list. Please note that you can hang up and leave the Zoom meeting at any time. We also expect and demand public decorum and courtesy and civility. If you do not follow these codes of conduct, you will be exited from the meeting. I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. Welcome committee members, staff, and those joining us from the public. Welcome to today's Technology Committee. Today is June 19th. We'll soon get started. Actually, let's get started now. Can you call the roll, please?
Supervisor Bartlett?
Here.
Board Member Kraka?
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Here.
Councilmember Buscaino?
Here. Thank you so much. Well, I got my Dodger hat on. I'm supposed to go to the Dodger game tonight. And of course, no Dodgers. They're supposed to play the Detroit Tigers. So this is the closest I'm gonna get to a Dodger game.
Didn't know that was okay, so.
Go Dodgers.
There you go. Thanks, Gideon. Talking to Councilmember Rodriguez as we were waiting for our colleagues to join us. And I think we both agreed that we miss our professional sports. Looking forward to getting them back. With that, members, I'd like to turn your attention to today's agenda. I'd like to recommend taking items 2 and 3 on consent, unless you want to pull any of those items. Have any questions on 2 or 3?
I'll move the items.
Wait a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment on item 2 and 3? We take that now. Anyone sign up for to speak on items 2 or 3?
Hi, sorry, this is Sherry Hani-Zavara, counsel for the district. I believe Councilmember Mitchell may actually have
A disclaimer?
Make, yes.
Okay, let's do that right now.
Well, I thought I had one on 1 and 4. Do I have one on 3?
Oh, okay. Okay, my apologies.
Okay, so you're good, Ms. Mitchell?
I think I'm good. Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, let's go back to public comment on 2 and 3. Anyone wish to speak on 2 and 3? Please come forward.
Yes, we do. A phone number ending in 555.
Thanks, Ron. Please identify yourself.
Hello, it's me, Ranji. Am I on?
You're on.
Oh, thank you. My name is Ranji George. I'm an employee of TAO. I just want
Ranji,
to...
what item are you speaking on, sir?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
This is the item of number 2, issuing a program announcement for zero
Go
emission.
ahead, proceed. Proceed, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. I just want to reiterate that last 30 years, hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on zero emission vehicles. And the way the criteria is listed, almost 90%, 80 to 90% is going towards battery electric vehicles, and zero emission vehicles gets the breadcrumbs, the leftovers. I strongly would urge you to separate the two announcements, one earmarked for batteries and one earmarked for fuel cell vehicles, because let's fuel cell vehicles compete with other fuel cell manufacturers, and electric vehicles compete with fellow electric rather than competing across, because they are two different technologies. They bring great benefits, and I urge you to continue. If you continue to do this, put everything in the same category and not giving special consideration for either of them, batteries will just keep running over fuel cell technologies. So I urge you that to split the amount being broadcast, so half of it goes to electric vehicles and half to zero emissions. Secondly, I would like you to consider, sir, ladies and gentlemen, to give additional funding for hydrogen fuel cell trucks. Let's say you're giving 200 maximum for EVs. Let's give 300 for fuel cells, because they have some special challenges. But in the long run, both can give tremendous advantage to this basin. Thirdly, and this is, I guess I'll wait to agenda number 1, but this is my special plea to you that let's not continue to make the mistakes of last 30 years. As we go forward, let's bring hydrogen fuel cells on the same level field as battery electric. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for joining us. With that, we have a motion and a second to approve items 2 and 3 on the consent calendar. Roll call vote, please.
Chair, we have one more public speaker, Harvey.
All right, Mr. Eder. Go ahead. Which items would you like to speak on?
Well, 2 and 3 and what others when they come up, but I guess 2, what Ranji just spoke on. I'm speaking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition. Concerned about splitting. I hear Ranji saying he wants half the money. He wants 50% instead of 80-90 going to batteries. I mean, there's a market.
I'm on a Zoom right now.
Am I being interrupted here? This is my time. Hello?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Harvey.
Okay, so add me another 30 seconds or a minute, okay? Look, what's cost effective? What are the potentials for it, and all this and that? And he characterized what do you call it? He said ZEV, zero emission. He said the whole alternative thing he mentioned was the hydrogen fuel cells. There's a lot of other stuff too. Heat engines. I think it's been ignored. 40 years ago, I was looking at that they use turbochargers, and that's something that could be used for solar thermal. All right, and simply heat. Okay. Also, Tata, I heard the head Burke said some mysterious thing with Tata. They're using compressed air. Okay, what are the numbers? I don't know. Have they changed? But we got to look at everything. Okay, but so and that control is the bigger question. Equity. He's a physicist and an economist. He went to okay. Let's talk about equity, Ranji. Let's talk about equity. Let's talk about 100,000 kids dying a year of pneumonia and not getting vaccines in India, your native country. All right, this 4 million people die a year, and the pandemic is a virus. It's a vector. It's climate change right now, and these trillions of dollars that we're spending have similar trillions of dollars in social costs. We had 3/4 of a billion people not having enough to eat under $2 a day because of this, on top of over 500-600 billion already, and that's increasing. This is what we need to do, and not being able to meet these climate numbers and what Greta's talking about is totally being ignored here. All you're talking about is natural gas, and this is not the real problem. Biden said he wants to deal with the real world. So does Greta. They're totally ignoring, and we're whistleblowers that incorporate the 89-page by Richard Bright Richard that's blowing this and organized this under Trump and was fired and put down. So that's part of our whistleblower suit, incorporated by reference, and that's what's going on. And we've got to deal with the real world. This is scary stuff, especially the way it's all be swept under the rug and purged straight up. Your captured agency, all of these state, federal, all captured agencies, we got to deal with it. That's the real world.
Thank you. Any other speakers, Ron?
No other speakers.
Thank you, sir. Okay, colleagues, with that, again, on 2 and 3, we have a motion to approve on the consent calendar, items 2 and 3. Let's take a roll call vote, please.
Alex, you're on
Alex,
mute.
you're on mute.
Thank you. Supervisor Bartlett,
Yes.
Board Member Krakow,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes,
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Vizcaíno.
Yes.
Motion passes 5 ayes.
Thanks, Alex. With that, members, let's turn to item number 1. Item number 1 is now before us. And we want to,
and Mr. Chair, I do have a disclaimer.
Ms. Mitchell, floor is yours.
Yes, I don't have a conflict of interest and I have no financial interest in this matter, but I am a member of the California Air Resources Board, and they are involved in the agenda item.
Thank you for that. Turn to the presentation on item number 1. Ms. White.
Good afternoon.
Oh, Ash, you're on.
My name is Ash Nakurvan, and I will actually be presenting this on behalf of Ms. White.
The agenda says Vicky White, though. I'm just kidding.
I apologize for that.
All good. Thank you.
Okay.
Proceed.
So, thank you. So this item is to adopt a resolution recognizing funding under the State Reserve Program and to redistribute funding amongst incentive programs for timely implementation. Next slide, please. So by way of background, the California Air Resources Board Health and Safety Code allows 10% of the Moyer funds to be allocated for the State Reserve Program. For the fiscal year 2019-2020, 9.36 million was available for the State Reserve, of which 45.6% was allocated to South Coast AQMD by CARB. That equates to about $4.3 million. CARB has specified that the funding for this year's program is going to be allocated exclusively to the implementation of the on-road heavy-duty voucher incentive program. And one of the requirements under this award is that a board resolution recognizing these funds is accepted prior to funding distribution. Next slide. Some additional background on the second portion of the agenda item. Since November 2019, the board has approved various funding awards under our multiple incentive funding programs that we implement at South Coast AQMD. A subset of these programs, often due to various delays due to contracting, deliveries, or financial constraints, cause us to have delays and have to reallocate the funds. Additionally, with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, additional delays have caused the forestalling of the liquidation process, and there's a necessity to reallocate these funds. Next slide, please. So our proposal is to adopt a resolution to recognize the 2019-2020 State Reserve funding for the VIP program and to allow the executive officer to redistribute the funding sources amongst the various incentive programs to the extent where we could redistribute the funds within the constructs of the various incentive program guidelines to ensure that we're having a timely liquidation of the project funds. Next slide, please. And our recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution recognizing the 4.3 million in funds and to authorize the executive officer to redistribute the funding sources amongst the various incentive programs for timely funding liquidation. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. So with that, members, any questions on item number 1 that's before us before we turn to public comment? Okay, hearing none. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 1.
I'll move we adopt the resolution.
Second.
Chair, we do have public
Looks
comment.
like you have public comment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's turn to public comment. Speaker, come forward.
Ranji.
Yes. Thank you, board members. My name is Ranji George. I will continue to strongly request that these funds, incentive funds, should be earmarked separately into 2 pots, one specifically for electric vehicle technologies, others for hydrogen fuel cells. Please don't mix it up, because battery, given the criteria, maybe it is unintentional, but the criteria that being set across the state favors battery electric vehicles on a consistent and repeated basis over zero emission fuel cell vehicles. So I urge you going forward to split it up. Secondly, I urge you to look at the funding distribution of the last, let's say 5 years. I would prefer from 20 years onwards, but at least from 5 years to do a management evaluation of where this funding is going in terms of technology, because we are trying to keep both technologies alive, aren't we? So, and you'll see the disproportionate funding going to one technology at the expense of the other. Secondly, and this is an important point, in the board letter, towards the end, they talk about disadvantaged communities and how we need to mitigate emissions in the disadvantaged, and that's a great thing. It's written there, but EVs will mitigate it right at the start of the program, but once the battery life is expired, they will be, this battery waste will affect the EJ community. So you're violating the spirit and both the letter and intent of AB 617, which says that to take the overall impact on EJ communities. So I strongly urge to put some funding to evaluate such impacts and to mitigate those impacts from battery electric especially. So these are the continuing concerns. I'll have to continue to express them because until we get the parity for the two technologies. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Any other member of the public like to speak on item number 1? Please come forward.
No other members.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote on item 1, please.
Supervisor Bartlett,
Yes.
Board Member Kreeka,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5 ayes.
Thank you, Alex. With that, let's go to item 4. If I can bring staff up to present on item number 4, please.
Mr. Chair, I have another disclaimer to make on item 4.
Please go
I
ahead.
don't have a conflict of interest or financial interest in this issue, but I am a member of the California Air Resources Board, which is involved in the agenda item.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Okay, with that, let's call on staff to present on item 4.
All right. Thank you, Chair and Committee. My name is Sam Chow. This next agenda item is about executing a contract to study the effects of ethanol gasoline blend on criteria emissions and secondary organic aerosol formation. The reason we're interested in SOA formation here is because SOA can be directly emitted or formed in the atmosphere through complex chemistry, which closely ties with our PM 2.5 emissions as well as ultrafine particulates and outbasin. Next slide, please. By way of background, according to the 2016 AQMD, gasoline was the largest energy source in our basin, accounted for over 45% of the total energy consumption. Light-duty gasoline vehicle, the largest user of those gasoline, have ranked the top 4th and 2nd in terms of NOx and VOC emissions inventory. In May of 2019, the US EPA did approve year-round use of E15, that's 15% ethanol by volume, in order to support the renewable fuel standard and energy independence initiatives. This significantly increased the ethanol content in the fuel and triggered a need to understand the impact on emissions. And past ethanol studies funded by South Coast AQMD and others have shown emissions reduction possible with high content of ethanol, such as E30 and E80. However, being able to use those high content would require a flex fuel vehicle, FFV. The lower content, such as E10 and E15 that we're interested here, the results are inconsistent and the emissions trends vary by vehicle technology and vehicle model year. Furthermore, in a late 2019 CARB published staff concept paper on fuel standard, it has raised concern with increased NOx emission possible with E15 based on CARB's own gasoline predictive model. However, the data source for that particular model were based on studies performed in the early 2000s. Lastly, as identified in AQMD, as I mentioned earlier, the precursor emissions such as NOx and VOC have proven to be linked to SOA formation, which together contribute to higher PM 2.5 emissions in our basin, as well as ultrafine emissions. Some of our recent studies have shown the potential to reduce those emissions with high ethanol blends. Next slide, please. As a result, so CARB and the ethanol industry, made up with Renewable Fuels Association and Growth Energy, have together contracted UCR CSIR to perform a comprehensive study on E15. So this large study will include over 20 different gasoline vehicles, different model year technology, tested both on E10, baseline E10 and interested E15 fuels. The study will be conducted on UCR's chassis dynamometer, will be measuring regulated, unregulated, gaseous, particulate, and toxic emissions. The SOA formation will be characterized on a subset of 10 vehicles using UCR's mobile chamber. This picture showing on the right here shows the mobile chamber being placed inside the chassis dyno. Once the emission sample is collected, then it's transferred to the main chamber to be photochemically aged under ozone lights to mimic the process in the atmosphere. Next slide, please. Here's the proposed project cost share between CARB and the ethanol industry. They have together contributed over $1.1 million for the study. The requested amount from South Coast AQMD is $200,000 for a total project cost of $1.3 million. Next slide, please. The recommended action is to execute contract with UCR CSIR to perform study on E15 from the Clean Fuels Fund. With that, I conclude the presentation and take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chow.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, any member of the public like to speak on item 4, please come forward. Okay, hearing none. Any questions from committee members?
Chair, we do have one member, Harvey Etter.
Go ahead, Mr. Etter, you're on. Item 4.
Hello, I'm Harvey Etter. I'm talking for myself and for the Public Solar Power Coalition. Ethanol, methanol can be made from plants from sun. I'd like to know more what kind of reductions. This is good. Also looking, there was an Israeli outfit 4, 5, 6 years ago. They were at the Limelight Theater in Santa Monica, and they talked about 100% ethanol and reducing emissions. So I want to incorporate all that stuff into the record, and that it should be studied. And as a study was part of this, what does the different alcohol numbers do? We got to study different types of fuels that might have potential benefits, and it's solar. And the equity issues have to be applied to this. Who's going to own it? Who's going to control it? How? All right. So these guys said that like 90%, 95% of existing cars can run on alcohol. There's a valve that has to be activated of all existing vehicles. All right. So this can be done in large scale. I brought this up with the Energy and Climate Committee this year, Club. I got some support to look into it from the guy that started the committee 15 years ago, who not with them anymore, and some other resistance. Anyway, this stuff has to be looked at and evaluated. Let science tell us what the numbers are and what's what. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have Ranji.
Please come forward. Thank you, Ranji. Item 4.
Right. Thank you. This is Ranji George. I was not planning to speak on this, but since Harvey Etter raised a really important issue about ethanol being alternate fuel for vehicles, we did an extensive study, and one of the concerns was to develop ethanol, you may use useful agriculture farmland and turn it to make ethanol, corn and other whatever sources are there. They may, if marginal lands which is not cultivable, if that is used, that's fine. But unfortunately, what we have seen throughout the world, where ethanol is being made and will be made, is these are good productive land. So we'll be trading food for alcohol. So let's also look at what Malaysia and many other countries have done with palm oil and coconut, called cash crops, and they destroyed, unfortunately, forests and lush greenery, forest land, and killed a lot of orangutans disappeared because they want to create money for their cash crops, palm oil. And the same thing would happen with ethanol. So we need to be a little more careful. There are a lot of research being done trying to get marginal lands into this production, and we should encourage and promote that, but please be careful as we proceed. But he did raise a good point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, members, on item 4, I'd like to entertain a motion for item 4.
Move approval.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Bartlett. With that, roll call, please, on item 4.
Supervisor Bartlett,
Yes.
Board Member Crago,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5 ayes.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, let's go to item 5. Members, item 5 is an informational item. I'd like to call on staff to report on item number 5 as an informational item.
Good afternoon. This is Lisa Mirasola. I'll be presenting on agenda item 5. This is for the California Fuel Cell Partnership Executive Board meeting in May, as well as activity reports. Next slide. The California Fuel Cell Partnership is a public-private partnership that was created over 20 years ago. It currently has 18 executive board members representing automobile manufacturers, government agencies, and industry stakeholders, as well as 35 full and associate members. Next slide. At the May Executive Board meeting, the Fuel Cell Partnership invited 2 new members to join. At the executive level was Chevron, and as a full member, Toyota Tsusho is joining as a steering team member. South Coast AQMD was represented by Councilmember Carlos Rodriguez for Dr. Burke, and he provided a welcome to the new members to help increase hydrogen fueling infrastructure. The Project Phoenix review is the next step to implement the 2030 vision for the Fuel Cell Partnership, and that will need additional mechanisms to do that. And so the partnership has started this process, and the executive board members confirmed core principles, vision, and mission, and provided guidance to staff to continue developing and working with the steering team to oversee this process. So the executive board members provide additional guidance for the organizational design to continue as a public-private partnership, and to develop financial model and governance for the new organization. The executive board members added a request for an update in late summer, which is currently scheduled for August 12th. And that would provide an additional period for input prior to the staff bringing a full proposal for the new organization in October at the executive board meeting. Next slide, please. Just to review the Fuel Cell Partnership goals for 2020 at a high level include supporting the fuel cell vehicle rollout, including cars, buses, and trucks, as well as the supporting reaching the 200 hydrogen stations, and a longer term goal to reach 1,000 stations, where the Fuel Cell Partnership provides customer interface tools that help develop that market. Fuel Cell Partnership also provides forum for opportunities for members to collaborate and expand the stakeholder base, including national coordination. And their goal also includes reaching target markets, audiences, and communications to educate and promote hydrogen and fuel cell vehicles and accelerate the adoption of these vehicles. Next slide, please. Just to highlight a couple of recent activities that help achieve the 2020 goals. The U.S. roadmap to a hydrogen economy was developed with the input from 19 organizations, 13 of which are industrial members of the California Fuel Cell Partnership. The Fuel Cell Partnership held a webinar which described the cost reductions that we're expecting and briefed attendees on those reports. And basically the graphic shows that the cost reductions that are expected in developing the hydrogen economy can enhance the accelerated deployment of fuel cell electric trucks. In addition, there are monthly heavy-duty fuel cell truck task force teleconferences that provide a forum for members to learn more about funding opportunities and the proposed regulations. Next slide, please. And so just to highlight a couple of events earlier this year, the Fuel Cell Partnership participated in a demonstration of a Shell future dispenser in Torrance. And Fuel Cell Partnership, as well as many contributors and attendees, were at the Orange County Transit Authority when they debuted their 10 fuel cell buses and their new hydrogen fueling station. The South Coast AQMD helped co-fund that station with $1 million from Clean Fuels Fund, as well as 50% co-funding from CARB. And the Fuel Cell Partnership added their station to their website station map. Next slide. And so with this, staff would recommend receiving and filing this report. And that concludes my presentation, although Councilmember Rodriguez may wish to add any of his additional input.
Thank
Yeah, I was
you.
about to recommend that. Thank you, Carlos. Go ahead, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Lisa, for that great presentation. Clearly there was quite a bit of time. It's almost as if they're going to reboot the organization. And so we'll have to watch closely as this process is underway. I think it's in a positive direction, although I think it was important for us to emphasize where does medium and heavy duty truck fleet focus play into the long-term and short-term emphasis, and just to kind of make sure that for us, that's going to be where we really can capture a tremendous amount of NOx reduction opportunities. So just keeping that focal point of emphasis for that working group is something that will continue to kind of put them on a sense of emphasis. So, and I'd certainly welcome any thoughts from our committee moving forward to advance other thoughts of emphasis. But as you can appreciate, Mr. Chair, the ports, and as I've spoken in a few times, there's just a huge gap still of being able to utilize from an expense standpoint fuel cell technology. And so if we can work towards that end of having that more affordable, then we'll see that aspect of fleet change come to fruition much quicker. But there's clearly still a huge gap in that area. So,
sure. I mean, this committee has advanced efforts on approving demonstrations, right? And we still feel, I agree, Mr. Rodriguez, we got to lead with a sense of urgency. If the technology is there and it works, let's move on it. And really appreciate your leadership in representing the district last month and at the meeting. Any other comments? Yes, Ms. Mitchell.
I just want to comment on slide 6. We highlighted 2 events, and I actually participated in both of those. But I was at the opening of the Orange County Transit Authority's event where they demonstrated their fuel cell buses. But they also have the largest hydrogen fueling station in the nation, and it's quite incredible. So that's really a big step forward. But Orange County is also using battery electric buses as well. So they're really technology neutral, but experimenting on different fronts. And I just happened to go to the hydrogen fueling station in Torrance with my Honda Clarity on a day when these people were there demonstrating different ways to do your fueling with touch screens, because some of the problems with the fueling is it's not overwhelming, but it is problematic when you learn how to fuel a hydrogen car. There are a number of impediments as you're doing that. And so they were demonstrating different screens where you could just touch it to pull out what you needed for your fueling needs. So anyway, both of them were good projects. And it's exciting to see what's happening in fuel cell technology. The cost of the hydrogen stations is just so incredibly high that it does cause, difficulties in moving forward with this technology. But it certainly is one of the most viable technologies for line haul trucking, because you can fuel up in a very short time. You don't have to wait for a battery charger. So I think we're as falling behind on this technology. The battery electric has forged ahead, but it's something we need to pay attention to and keep working on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Ms. Bartlett?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So getting back to the same slide that Councilmember Mitchell was just commenting about, I agree with all of her comments, right on point. References Orange County Transit Authority. That should be Orange County Transportation Authority. That's OCTA.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. Fantastic. So informational items, we don't take public comment, correct?
Take back to faces.
Fantastic. Okay.
Councilman, you're on mute. Chairman Buscaino.
Sorry about that. It's like I've done this before, sorry. Informational item, we'll note and final item number 5. And thank you so much for the feedback and the comments from committee members. With that one, I'll turn to general public comment portion of today's committee agenda. I'd like to turn to Ranji for general public comment, followed by Harvey Etter.
Right. Thank you, board members. I just want to comment on the last item, please, if I may. Thank you, Board Member Mitchell, for your comments and your observation, and the previous board members seeking input. One thing I would request. I personally used to participate in California Fuel Cell Partnership in the initial years, I think 2 or 3 years. And I believe it's a closed meeting. It's not, public don't participate. I could be wrong. It may have changed and it may be open to public. But given that many government agencies are participating, I urge you, the members, to open this public so they can hear what's going on and provide feedback, just like you asked for a couple of minutes of feedback from the public. So this way, what they do is a little more broadcast rather than being just held very closely to the West. Secondly, so please, I guess it has to, there are government codes that say these things have to be public, because there's partly, and there's nothing very proprietary discussed as far as I recall. It was general comment. So surely it can be made open. Number one. Number 2 is staff is proposing, planning to make a proposal to the board. I heard something. Will that proposal come to you as a technology committee or to the board before being presented? I would appreciate if you can encourage staff to do that. Thank you, board members, for listening. And again, thank you for your participation in this program.
Thank you for joining us. Mr. Etter, general public comment.
Hi there. My name is Harvey Etter. I'm the founder director of the Public Solar Power Coalition, speaking for myself and for us. Stationary source. We've had a debate over 10 years, me and Dr. Fine, him saying, oh, if you put in solar, you only get, for like replacing natural gas, you get a couple of tons per gigawatt or whatever. And I'm saying it's 10, 50 times that. It's mobile sources. And that, they're still holding on to that. He's not giving up, okay? There are structural problems with staff, with the district, CARB, and I've seen this with CCAs, with the one down here in LA. You know, there is the appearance, like the one down here, of conflict of interest. You've got the ex-attorney from gas companies, the attorney for the Clean Power Alliance Southern California, LA County, okay, and a 15-year person from Edison, COO. Okay, look, they may have to be purged. You know, this is not going to work. Same with IOUs, the gas companies, whatnot. You've got structural problems. There's an old song called The Pusher. by Steppenwolf. It gets very visceral about how the difference between the dealer with a little bit of weed and the junkie, the heroin. We're all junkies. We're heroin addicts. And these guys are pushers. I'm incorporating by reference into the record. That's straight up. Now we're enforcing and you're reinforcing that system. We got to go to solar, renewables, and equitably do this and for our planet and ourselves and other species. And if we don't do it, we're part of the 6th grade extinction that we brought on. Straight up. We got the facts. These are the numbers. Okay. I don't know what to say. You folks haven't heard anything for 35 years. Okay. A lot of you haven't been around for about 5 or 10 years. Okay. So this, you didn't know this. And also the little poem that we gave, the sun makes the wind blow, the water flow, and the plants grow. It's the engine of our ecosystem. It's the way the world works. All right. Now we got to use it and implement it, not stored solar from hundreds of thousands of years in fossil fuels that we're burning with all this crap that we see is a deal that we cannot continue. Thank you. Bye. Any questions? Comments?
Harvey? Thank you for joining us. So members, I skipped over other business. I'm assuming we don't have any other business, but let's item 6. Any other business before this committee? Please let us know now. Okay, hearing none. We are now adjourned. Thank you. Have a blessed and safe weekend. Thank you so much for joining us all. And
Thanks,
thank
everyone. Have a great Father's
the
Day.
IT staff. Thank you. Happy Father's Day to all. Thank you. And happy Juneteenth Day.